Oh, looks like Lord Helmet has graced my video with a response. Who is this skeptical knight anyway, this quizzical equestrian? Where from does he get his ideas? What kind of hideous neckbeard mug is lurking behind that goddamn helmet anyway? Oh. Well, that is a lot more attractive than what I was expecting. Wonder what I have to do to get inside that armor. Ah, so that's his game. Well, that's certainly in my playbook. Looks like Skeptic and I are about to get off.
Good boy.
But first, I like to turn on. Skeptic, I think you'll find this video a little more interesting if you take one of these. So, here's one for you. Open your mouth a little wider. And one for me. You're just gonna want to hold on your tongue for a minute, and then just swallow it down. And now, we wait. Good God. Before I get started, I want to take a moment to explain what I think the point of making a response video is. Whenever some Knight of Reason makes a video response to me, some of his followers usually come rushing over to my channel to announce the triumph of masculine rationality over my faggoty-ass panties. For example, way to lump Armored Skeptic in when he hasn't done anything on the issue of Milo. Now he ripped your asshole open. Good job. And Justicar just annihilated this video. He went in on you like there was no tomorrow, as if we were on the brink of extinction. Raw! Unannounced, no lube, just rip your faggoty as panties apart and claim all over you. Is tearing your opponent's butthole to shreds really the aim of rationality? I always thought the purpose of rational argument was communication, or even, breaching some kind of mutual understanding, not just annihilating a human being. Socrates wasn't arguing with the citizens of Athens because he wanted to blast their buttholes. Actually, he did want to do that. But wasn't there also a thing about, truth and justice? Also, why is anal rape your go-to metaphor for winning an argument anyway? What does that say about your values? It reminds me of the internet term butthurt, which describes someone who complains a lot when their feelings are hurt. Just like a victim of anal rape. And why do dudes who like putting their dicks in people spend so much time denigrating people who like having dicks put inside them anyway? Shouldn't they be erecting monuments to these noble dick takers? Anyway, the point of this preamble is that I don't hate Armored Skeptic. If we met in person, I mean, it would probably be kind of awkward, but I'm sure we'd drink some beers and talk things over and it would be fine. Hello, Greg. Your name is Greg, yes? Try the wine! The problem is this medium. These goddamn savages demand a circus, and I intend to give them one. But behind the curtain, I really just want to have a conversation. I'm not trying to tear Skeptic's rectum into a billion shreds. I just crave human touch. Why won't you touch me, Mommy? Why won't you tell me you love me? So if I were to make a full response video to Armored Skeptic's two-part video on social justice, it would have to be a feature-length film, probably available sometime this fall, so I'm going to concentrate instead on a few important points. First, I do owe Skeptic an apology. This whole exchange was set off when I included the following clip in my video about Milo Stewart. Last week, a transgender teenager named Milo Stewart uploaded a YouTube video titled, "All Cis People Are Transphobic, and You're Probably Racist Too." So, what do you think happened next? How did the YouTube anti-SJW community respond? Most of the people pictured here had not made responses to Milo, and I didn't intend to suggest that they had. I was using their pictures as a kind of icon for this whole anti-social justice internet movement, or tantrum, or whatever it is, but I realized that in context it does look like I'm specifically calling them out, so using this image here was inaccurate and misleading, and I do apologize to the people pictured. Baby, I'm sorry. I'll buy you an ice cream bar. I do think it's important to publicly concede when you're wrong, distasteful though it may be, but now that that's out of the way, it's time to go on the offensive. Skeptic claims I've slandered him by attributing to him membership in the YouTube anti-SJW community.
Well, he just decided that we're all part of a community called the anti-SJW community. I did not even know that this community existed before this video was posted. I didn't know that anybody could be called an anti-SJW. Could you please explain to me what that means?
Well, how about this for a definition? An anti-SJW is a person, usually a white man, who posts video after video complaining about Anita Sarkeesian, feminism, Black Lives Matter, PC culture, and so on. In fact, if you unironically use the word SJW a lot, you're probably an anti-SJW. I'm honestly amazed that you're denying involvement in an online community of some kind. I mean, you made this picture. You tweeted it. You're friends with these people, you're dating one of them, you tweet at them, some of them support you financially, you make videos about the same topics, the people subscribed to you tend to also be subscribed to them. If this isn't an online community, then I guess there's no such thing as an online community. You seem to want to deny any kind of involvement in a community because it jars with your image of yourself as an individual free-thinking skeptic who reaches his own conclusions. But can you at least recognize that you're part of a trend? I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Human life is just communal by nature. No one's really that original. Even geniuses are pretty easy to place within a movement. Shakespeare belongs in the same group with Marlowe, Jimi Hendrix came out of blues and psychedelic rock, and where would the genius armored skeptic be without precursors like Thunderfoot and TJ? Still, I guess I should be glad that you don't have more community loyalty, since I am trying to persuade you to change your mind. Unless, of course, you're right and I'm wrong, in which case I hope you change my mind.
There, I said it. If you'd like to congratulate me on how nuanced I am, you may do that now.
So to get to the heart of my disagreement with Skeptic, I guess we need to go back to the celebrated gender confusion, Milo Stewart. Our disagreement is about whether Milo's claim that all white people are racist is inherently offensive and bigoted. I got approximately 10 million comments on my video about this from people who claim to be deeply offended and upset and bullied even by Milo. Yes, this Milo, the one who sometimes wears a dress and sometimes spins around in a chair. Whee! You know what, guys? I simply don't believe that your cis feelings are hurt. I know, because being cisgender makes your daily life so much harder, and you're a little sensitive about this because of all the oppression and bullying that you've had to face as a cisgender person. This is just a preposterous idea, and I'm not going to entertain it. So look, what's the most plausible interpretation of the claim that all white people are racist? Well, it's certainly not that all white people are bigoted Klansmen. This is obviously false, and we can dismiss it without further discussion. Case closed. What's next? Well, how about the idea that all white people have some degree of racial bias? What about the idea that everyone has some degree of racial bias?
Oh well, if this is a fact, then it should be very easy for you to prove, right?
Well, not necessarily. There are some facts that are very difficult to prove. But in this case, the evidence supports the view that most people are susceptible to some degree of implicit racial bias. In the description of this video, I'll link to a document from the National Center for State Courts that summarizes a lot of the scientific literature on this subject.
Yeah, sure, bias sucks, but bias isn't inherently a problem. Just because somebody has a mental bias does not mean that they act on it in any way.
Well, it's true that implicit mental bias is not itself a moral transgression. It's definitely not something people should feel guilty about, and more on guilt later. But implicit bias certainly can lead you to behave in discriminatory ways, sometimes with very serious consequences, as in this case, animated by the Crash Course YouTube channel.
In February 1999, 4 New York City police officers were on patrol in the Bronx when they saw a young black man standing on a stoop. They thought he looked suspicious. When they pulled over, he retreated into the doorway and began digging in his pocket. He kept digging as the police shouted at him to show his hands. A few seconds later, the man, Amadou Diallo, a 23-year-old immigrant from Guinea, was dead, hit by 19 of the 41 bullets that the police fired at him. What Diallo was reaching for was his wallet. He was going for his ID as he stood on the steps of his own apartment building.
There are also studies that show that implicit racial bias affects decisions made by doctors, hiring managers, judges, jurors, and voters. These are pretty important decisions, so implicit racial bias in these cases is not just a trivial thing. One of the dangers of being unaware or in denial about your own bias is that you might be acting on the basis of your bias without even realizing it. This is especially a problem since almost no one is explicitly racist anymore. For an example of what I mean by that, on June 2011, a group of white teenagers in Mississippi beat an innocent black man named Craig Anderson to death while repeatedly saying "n" and shouting "white power." It would be hard to think of a more obviously racist event than this, and yet, in the aftermath of the murder, the families and friends of the perpetrators all agreed that none of these confused young kids were racist at all. They just got caught up in a little teenage stupidity. According to one of the perpetrators' boyfriends, The news coverage is about trying to bring racism back. This kind of stuff is what brings racism into the world. I don't see the point in saying anything about race or involving race. It just makes blacks hate whites and white hate blacks all the more. The idea is that you can go and commit hate crimes, and then when people accuse you of being racist, you say that actually they're the real racists. There you were, innocently murdering black people, and then a bunch of racists came along and brought race into it by calling you racist like a bunch of racists. This is an extreme version of the common claim that Black Lives Matter is racist because they bring race up and create hostility.
I'm not even going to get into how the Black Lives Matter movement is a regressive movement designed to create an us and them mentality between the black and white communities, as well as keep black people in a perpetual victim class.
How are the people standing up for themselves and trying to change their situation the ones who are keeping black people in a perpetual victim class? Isn't that like exactly the opposite of what is true? I guess the problem is that Skeptic doesn't believe there is systemic racial injustice in America, so he thinks the protesters are crybabies whining about imaginary oppression. It would require a separate video, or 500, to argue that there is in fact racism in America. And maybe I'll make that video at some point if I see enough comments from people who don't see race because racism is over. But that is such a stupid position. Are you sure that's your position, Skeptic? Are you sure you don't want to change your mind? I offer now is the time to change your mind. Maybe do 10 minutes of research on police brutality and mass incarceration before answering.
When you confront these people and ask them for proof that they're actually being oppressed or a part of an oppressed group, they just tell you, hey, whitey, you don't see it because you're part of the system.
But are you sure it's not true that you don't see it because you're part of the system? It appears that you have the privilege of never really having had to think about race until now, whereas a lot of people are constantly reminded of their race by the obstacles it puts in front of them. And then you have the audacity to call them racist for bringing it up.
Now, race and racial tension is not something that I generally talk about, mainly because it's not something I have a lot of experience with.
Well, that's pretty obvious from these videos. You say the deepest rabbit hole of bigotry you've ever experienced was watching videos from Milo Stewart, an indication that you have no idea whatsoever what it's like to face actual racism. Now, to be fair, Skeptic is also probably referring to Ghazi, who actually is a racist crackpot. Milo, you fucked up by citing this guy. He is not a reliable source of information about, well, anything. I mean, he's funny.
Jew, I am your father.
Jew, I am your father. It's good, but he should not say the things that he says. Maybe next time try Cat Black? Incidentally, can black people be racist? Yes, of course they can. But black supremacy does not and never has been a systemic threat to white people in America, whereas the reverse is obviously the case. So white racism is a lot more harmful. Speaking of Milo, I think the best point in his video was this one.
The whole point of acknowledging that we're racist, transphobic, misogynistic, etc. is so that we can better recognize our biases and work to overcome them.
This is exactly what the NCSC pamphlet suggests. Consciously acknowledging group differences instead of feigning colorblindness, scrutinizing your own thoughts and feelings, and exposing yourself to stereotyped group members in a positive context are all ways to mitigate the effects of implicit bias on your judgment. Although I can't definitively prove that everyone has racial biases, I become skeptical when anyone claims to be immune to them. It would be like someone telling me that they never recognize patterns where there aren't any, or that they're never influenced by social pressure. It kind of raises a red flag and makes me think that this person isn't very aware of their own limitations. All of this applies to behavior as well as attitudes. I agree with the Avenue Q thesis that everyone's a little bit racist sometimes. Pretty much everyone has told a racist joke or made a racist assumption at some point, and this does not make you a monster, but these things can add up to have damaging effects, and they do reinforce biases. You don't need to feel really guilty about it, you just need to be aware of it, and the potential it has to do harm. But Skeptic seems really fixated on this idea that social justice warriors supposedly want him to feel guilty. He brings it up again and again.
And just like feminism's greatest weapon is to make men feel guilty for being men, these racially motivated groups will try to make people feel guilty for being white. Trying to make people feel guilty by association for something that you can't even prove exists. The most powerful emotion is guilt, and white guilt is very much a real thing. That is an emotion that people like this prey on. As white people, they want us to feel guilty about being white. They want me to feel guilty about being a man. They want me to feel guilty about being successful and fucking hot as hell. They want
Gregory, I love you.
Well, I for one do not feel guilty about being white and male, and I don't want anyone else to feel guilty about it. Feeling guilty doesn't help anyone. The point of being aware of your privilege and prejudices is to be aware of the limitations of your own experience and the ways your thinking can be shaped by a cultural background of injustice. When you aren't aware of these things, you're unable to recognize racist behavior in yourself and others, which perhaps explains why a man calling himself a skeptic and a rationalist seems to have fallen for the rhetoric of the worst nationalist demagogue and huckster in recent American history. A man who, incidentally, claims to be the least racist person that you have ever met, and who tweets pictures of a burrito to prove how much he loves Mexicans. Skeptic's video, titled Defending Trump and White Privilege, is riddled with errors, including his claim that American unemployment is at an old-time high. It's not. That Malcolm X never advocated violence. He did. That, quote, Trump has never said anything that was remotely racist. He has. And that fascism is a phenomenon of the political left. It isn't. Skeptic redacted this last claim in a comment, but the fact that he made this basic error in the first place leads me to believe that he's pretty new to this conversation. Then when he lost subscribers because of it, he complained on Twitter to the gay British version of Ann Coulter, a person who never would have been taken seriously by the online skeptic community 8 years ago, when Sarah Palin would have been Nero's mommy. Or was the problem with Palin not what she believed and did, but with her gender? What's alarming to me is the way certain people on YouTube flex whatever intellects they have by attacking the most facile and ignorant arguments of religious fundamentalists and conspiracy theorists, arguments which any clever middle school graduate could debunk, and then they emerge from this easy triumph filled with confidence that they're fully equipped to tackle extremely complicated social and political issues without first doing any serious research. I know I'm kind of being a dick about this, but as someone who's currently watching my country, along with the UK and Europe, succumb to the worst fit of nationalist insanity since World War II, I'm starting to feel like I'm living in some sort of nightmare. Or maybe it's only a bad trip.
Oh god, I took too much. Took too much, man. Oh, this is hell. Okay. I think I've got some Klonopin left. 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 It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna take the pills. It's gonna be fine. Yes! No! Oh, I'm fucked. Oh, I'm doomed. Oh, this is the end. Every second is a millennium. I am so fucked. Oh, God. Okay. Calm down. Stay cool. What do we got? What do we got here? What's this? What's Play-Doh complete works? Okay. It's just drugs. It's just drugs. We're gonna wait it out. We're gonna wait it out and read. Let's see.
Yes, Socrates, said Thrasymachus, it is certain. That's right, Thrasymachus, said Socrates. I just annihilated your argument. I went in on you like there was no tomorrow. Raw, unannounced, no lube, just ripped your faculty panties apart and came all over you? What? No! No! If you liked this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And now, introducing Patreon.
Hi. Are you tired of watching my videos for free? Do you have too much money?
Patreon.
This video looks like shit. That's because I have no goddamn money. And when I have no goddamn money, the video looks like shit. Do you not hate feminism? I have a mental illness. Green screen shadows, no color correction, these are problems of the past. Now you can give me money. I'm a big old rabbit. I just need more money. I need more money. I just need money. Patrons get access to bonus content. Give $5 or more per video and you'll get your name in the credits.
I love you.